back to the Max Reality. If you've seen my face before, then you know the drill, but if you're new here, I love talking all things reality TV, and today, Shark Tank has finally returned from their 3-week break, so we are here to recap Season 16, Episode 12. Our sharks for this week are Barbara, Daniel, Kevin, Lori, and Mark. Our first pitch of the night is Kiid Coffee. Ethan and David walked into the tank looking for $50,000 for 5% of their coffee for kids.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. What parent is going to hand real coffee to a child?
This guy.
Here it is, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an instant coffee geared toward kids. It's caffeine-free, and along with that, they've added different nutrients to help growing kids. They sell their coffee in 2.75-ounce bags, and it retails for $14 and costs them $3.50 to make. They started the company in April of 2024, and so far their lifetime sales were $75,000. Mark is our first shark to really jump in with this, saying what they've done is great, but ultimately it's all just too early for an investor to come in, and with that, he goes out. David admits that they are very early in their business process, but he feels like this has great potential for growth. He tells us not only are they selling it direct to consumer online, but they're also selling it in coffee shops. At the moment, they're in about 3 local mom and pop type shops, and each of those shops is selling about 2 bags per day. On top of that, they're also selling the coffee by serving it. Daniel points out how impressive that number is by telling us that the Kind bar in Starbucks sells about 0.7 per day. So selling 2 bags a day is super impressive. And this information makes Mark completely do a 180 and change his mind. But not only Mark wants to make an offer, Lori wants to make an offer, Kevin wants to make an offer, everybody wants to make an offer. Kevin is the first to give his offer, which is $50,000 for 30%. Next up, we have the dynamic duo of Mark and Lori, who come in together to make an offer of $50,000 for 20%. While David is super excited about the interest from the shark, he's not loving that they're valuing the company a lot lower than he did, and he even tries to coax an offer out of Daniel because he can tell he's interested, and he is, but Daniel is at the same place with the other sharks, offering $50,000 for 20%. He tries to see if any of the sharks would be willing to go down to 10%, but none of them are willing to go that low. However, Daniel has an interesting offer for him. See, at this current moment, this isn't David's full-time gig, so Daniel says his best and final offer is that he can do the $50,000 for 20%, but if and when David goes full-time in the company, Daniel will let him buy back 5% of it through stock options. But that's not all, because then Kevin decides to make the offer of the $50,000 for 15%, just straight up, no contingencies.
Okay.
No, hold on.
Literally 10 out of 10. Such a funny moment. Kids are just so funny. But with that, it's decided that David and Ethan need to take a minute to talk amongst themselves.
He's gonna fire his dad.
I will say, I really liked this part of the pitch. You really see David kind of trying to explain to Ethan that both of the offers they're getting are essentially the same kind of at the end of the day. So really what they need to think about is who they want advising the company. And I just thought it was really cute seeing him like really explain that, because there are times when it's a kid business, but like it's obviously like the kid has no involvement. And I mean, they could be argued that might be sort of the case here, because this is obviously a product that like David invented, and it feels kind of like Ethan's just the mascot, but he is involving him. So I'm going to give him points for that. I really like to see it. I enjoyed this part of the pitch. After they finish their little meeting, they come back to the sharks and let them know that they have decided to partner with Daniel. So they end up doing the deal for $50,000 for 20%, with the contingency about if David goes full-time, he can get that 5% back through stock options. So first things first, if you watch my videos, you know I really don't talk about like how they came up with the product or any of their backstory, because it just gets like repetitive and I don't know. I just don't like talking about it. That's not why I watch the show. I've said this 1,000 times. But I will say how this came about was because the child, Ethan, had an issue where he broke his legs 2 different times, and the doctors told him it was because of poor nutrition. And I've seen like a bunch of different people on the internet being like weird about this, And I get that it might seem weird, but at the end of the day, we do not know what could be wrong with Ethan, like what underlying causes of issues he might have had. We don't know anything about them except for this wild fact. So it's very weird to see people speculating things about their family on the internet. I just had to say that because I keep reading stuff and we don't know these people. I don't know what happened. Like, we don't know. We don't know. So it's weird to just, like, make up stories in your mind about, like, them being terrible parents or, like, them having a weird diet and that's what happened. Like, you don't, again, just let it go. I've never understood that with reality TV. Moving on. So to that point, I get it. He wants to make, like, a nutritious, healthy drink for kids. One thing I do think is funny is on their website, they're like, because of like loose regulations and stuff, food and multivitamins can make all these claims about them being healthy, but they're really not. And it's like, you know, you're a food. Like, you could also be making claims. So I just thought that was funny. I don't know. It just felt a little weird to put that in there when you are also a food. Like, I get what you're saying. You're saying we aren't doing it, but, like, how do I really know that at the end of the day? How do I really know that any of these nutrients are really being absorbed and are really going to actually do anything? Because that's what the thing with all of these kind of things is at the end of the day. It could be in there all at once, but it really depends on, like, how well it'll get absorbed or any of that sort of stuff. Like, it's very, very complicated. It's not just like, oh, look, we shoved a bunch of this vitamin in there. You know, I hope that made sense and that's not just me rambling. I guess the main point I'm trying to make is a lot of these companies, like they say, do make dubious claims. They'll put a bunch of vitamins in something, but at the end of the day, it's really not actually doing anything for you. And they have like a science tab on their page, but it's not like any of those articles or studies are about their kids' coffee and showing that it actually provides something or provides what they're saying it provides. It's just more about the general, like, is coffee good for kids or magnesium on brain health, those sort of things. It's not about their coffee. So really, who's to say? Who is to say? I don't know. I'm not saying it's a scam either. I'm just saying I don't know. That's why I always put, like, quotes. When I'm talking about Poppy being a healthy soda, all of it is just quotes because I don't know. I'm not a food scientist. I'm not a nutritionist. I know as much as I know about this, which is like maybe this much. What I do know about, though, is coffee. I know so many people probably watched this show and is like, what kid likes coffee? What kid wanted coffee as a kid? Me, I was that kid who loved coffee. I loved taking it from my mom, drinking her coffee, and my mom is a black coffee drinker. So I am a true just coffee lover. I've always said it. I say it all the time. I'll drink trash coffee. I don't care. I love coffee. Always have, always will. So to that point, I hate when people say this. I hate it. But I'm going to be hypocritical right now and say, I drank coffee as a kid and I turned out fine. That could be argued by some people in my life if I turned out fine or not. But I don't know. I kind of just don't get this brand at the end of the day. I get it as maybe like a fun treat for kids or whatever. But if your kid really likes coffee, I don't really know why you wouldn't just buy them decaf coffee. Because again, like the health benefits are nor here nor there. Let's not even talk about that. Let's just talk about it being a kid's coffee. I don't really know why you wouldn't just buy them decaf. I don't know. I just overall not 100% getting this. It's also really, really expensive. $14 for a bag that's a little under 3 ounces. I just don't see a lot of parents justifying that. I definitely see this more in the avenue of if coffee shops will pick it up. I can see that more, like being out at a coffee shop and your kid wanting something that's maybe a little different than hot chocolate. I definitely see it more in that avenue than parents buying it for their kids in the bags. This is one I definitely want to hear about from people, especially parents. As somebody who doesn't have kids, it's kind of hard for me to like decide. I do get the idea of like buying a fun treat for at home. Obviously, I buy all the fun sodas for myself. I'm a really big fun drink person. So I do get it in that aspect. but I don't know. I've been grappling with this one a lot. It's just kind of a weird one overall. Our second pitch of the night is Goodlove Foods. Chanel walked into the tank looking for $150,000 for 5% of her gluten-free baked goods. Here are their different offerings. Once again, it's a pretty self-explanatory company. She makes gluten-free versions of bakery items we all know and love, like cinnamon rolls, puff pastry, pizza crust, and more. Moving on to the numbers, the only thing we really talk about is the biscuits she sells. She says they retail for $11.99, but online they're a few dollars more to help cover the premium of having to ship them, because this is a frozen item, and if you've seen any of my videos before, you probably know that shipping frozen stuff is a nightmare. Doing frozen products in general is very, very difficult. We don't really get a to make it price. Instead, she says her margins are around 75%, but it goes down to about 25% once shipping's involved. In 12 months, they've been able to do $360,000 in sales, and they're planning to exceed $500,000 by the end of 2024. On top of that, they're projecting to do $1.5 million in 2025, and they say they should be profitable about 20% off of the $500,000 made in 2024. The absolute very, very first thing we have to talk about is in her intro, when she got done explaining the product and all that, all of a sudden this music starts playing and 3 guys on rollerblades come out and they're playing this song that's like a theme song for the brand almost, being like, "Good love." I don't really remember the tune or the melody or whatever. It was so funny. If it wasn't such a long clip, I would play it for y'all, but definitely go and check it out if you can, because so funny. It very much reminded me of the pitch Long Table, I think it was, from a couple seasons ago. It was a pancake mix business, and for some reason, the man brought his wife to come do an Aerial Silks performance. It was very random. He also brought the actor David Schwimmer because they know each other from doing theater together. I don't know. It was a wild pitch. So this one wasn't quite as wild as that, but it's always so funny when they do something just so random like this. It made me giggle. One of the first questions the Sharks have is how is she selling them? And she lets us know that they do both online direct-to-consumer and they're selling them in stores, but about 80% of their sales come from directly online, which was very surprising considering it's a frozen product, and again, shipping frozen stuff is insane. Daniel points out how difficult this business model is of selling frozen items direct to consumer, and she completely agrees and says they do have an ultimate goal of getting more into distribution and into that retail space, and to that end, they've even invested in their own manufacturing facility. Barbara wants to know where she sees the business in 5 years, and she says ultimately she wants to be that grocery store staple, again reinforcing the idea that they do want to make this product more of a retail product and get away from having to ship it. However, Daniel's worried about their ability to scale this product. Along with that, he doesn't really feel like she's thought out their plan to retail well enough, and on top of everything, frozen is just a notoriously difficult space, and for all of those reasons, he's out. Then we have Barbara, who kind of echoes Daniel's points, saying she doesn't really think she knows exactly what she's getting into with the freezer retail space, and we again hear Barbara's story about Daisy Cakes and their venture into the retail freezer aisle and how it was a complete disaster, and once again, Barbara is still scarred from all of that, and because of it, she's out. Lori wants to know what she's looking for in a shark, and she says what they really, really need is that retail expertise to help her with what she doesn't know about getting into the retail space. Along with that, they need help with production, because at the moment, like I said, they're doing it all themselves, and they know that's not sustainable to continue to scale and grow the business. Kevin comes in to just kind of echo all the points that have already been made. Number one, her not really having that path to retail yet, frozen being difficult, and scalability. All of those things combined have Kevin going out, and then we have Mark, who gives us the short and sweet golden Shark Tank answer, which is, it's a good business for you, but not investable for me, and he is also out.
Well, I guess there's just me.
That leaves us with Lori, and lucky for her, Lori is not afraid of the freezer space. She's actually had some other Shark Tank investments do really well in the freezer space, one of which is pizza cupcakes that I tried recently, and with all of that, she decides to make her an offer of $150,000 for 20%. At first, she tries to counter for 18%, and this counter gives us such a funny line from Daniel.
That shows some deep level of sophistication or desperation. I think it's the former.
Lori really appreciates the fact that she chose to counter at 18%. She feels really respected, and because of that, she agrees, and they end up doing the deal for $150,000 for 18%. So first things first, some lore about me. I had a period of time about, 3 or 4 years ago where I had to stop eating gluten for a little bit, and let me tell you, it is a very, very bad time. The stuff that was out there at least a couple years ago was not very good. It was really, really expensive, and it was just a bad time overall. So I don't know if the gluten-free scene has gotten better, but I can attest as somebody who was really struggling with it, bad times all around. What I will say is I do agree with the Sharks that the frozen business is it's just a difficult time. It's a difficult game. So I'm really glad she got Lori, because Lori does have experience in the space, and like I said, has done well. Pizza cupcakes, Bantam bagels, Fresh Farmer frozen. That's one of those I haven't tried yet. It's an ice cream, but they all have done very well for her. So I'm glad that they were able to partner with Lori, because probably the best partner for them up there for that. I wanted to go on their website to give y'all a better idea of how ordering online works, especially since it's frozen, but they are completely sold out. So all I can really tell you is that you do have to order a minimum of 6 items or a maximum of 12, which makes sense to me for just, again, how shipping frozen stuff works, but it does suck. It's kind of a lose-lose for everybody, because if you haven't tried it, that's a huge commitment to make. It's also a big commitment to make for freezer space. Not a lot of people have enough room to be storing a bunch of frozen stuff like that, especially depending on what items you buy, but it's just kind of, again, it's one of those things that you gotta do what you gotta do. This is one I will definitely want to blind taste test someday. It's going up on the list of things to try, but that's not going to be happening until it comes to a store near me and I can just buy one, because I am one of those people. I do not have the dedicated freezer space to buy 6 types of things like this. My freezer's already full of the normal things I need day to day. So this one will have to wait until it comes near me, but maybe with Lori as a shark, that might be sooner rather than later. We'll have to see. Ultimately, I hope it's as good as all the Sharks say, because I see you, gluten-free people out there. I see the struggle. It is real. I empathize. I hope this is a really good alternative that might be coming out there. If you're currently gluten-free, I would definitely like to know if gluten-free stuff has gotten more abundant or better, especially if you live in a more normal area, not like one of the bigger cities, because, again, it was so hard for me. Luckily for me, there's a local gluten-free bakery in our town, and that is where I had to go to get all my bread items all the time. It was a struggle. So I see you out there, gluten-free people, and I hope this becomes a good option out there. Our third pitch of the night is the Happy Birdwatcher Co. Susan walked into the tank looking for $150,000 for 10% of her customized bird feed. Here it is, and how it works is you go on her website and you answer some questions about your zip code, what kind of bird feeder you have, what birds you want to see, and they customize bird seed based on all of your answers, giving you the best bird watching experience possible in your backyard. For pricing, she talks about her Simply Seeds box kit. It retails for $49 and it costs them $26.79 to make. She started the business in 2021. That year they only did $9,000 in sales, but in 2022 it jumped all the way to $109,000. In 2023 they did $189,000, and year to date in 2024 they had done $152,000 and were projecting to end the year at $360,000. Unfortunately, though, this is not a profitable company. So first, while they're trying to understand exactly, what the product does, what the benefit of it is, which is trying to get certain birds to your backyard, we get this clip from Kevin, which I have just been quoting nonstop. Kevin always gives us the quotes that stick in my head forever and make me laugh.
You don't give a about the bird. You just want to see it.
Moving on from that, we have Daniel, who invested in a Shark Tank business called HumViewer a couple seasons back, and he is a huge bird fan. but he's worried about the scalability of her product and wonders what her plan is for future growth. And honestly, in my opinion, she doesn't really give us an answer to this question. She just says that with the money and mentorship, it'll help her get to that next level and that she's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. So I don't really feel like she gives us a direct answer to the question, just kind of like those selling point things you say in an interview kind of things. Kevin has similar concerns to Daniel. On top of that, he's worried about the fact that they aren't profitable yet, and he doesn't know that they have a path to profitability, and because of that, he's out. We then have Mark, who has similar concerns and talks about the fact that she's not really charging for the premium service that she's giving. He talks about that she should have a less customized product that she sells, and then on top of that, sell the customization services. But with the business how it currently is, unfortunately, Mark is out. And the avalanche of sharks going out just continues from there. We next have Lori, who just feels like the product is too niche. Then we have Barbara, who gives us the classic, I'll be a customer, but not an investor line. And last, we have Daniel, who really thinks the business can be successful, but at this point, he doesn't feel like she has enough of it figured out for him to come in as an investor. And because of that, he is also out, which means she leaves the tank without a deal. I think the biggest thing I have to say about all of this is I 100% agree with Mark. I think what would make this business work a lot better is if she had a less customized product and then added the customization as like a premium service. For example, I don't know if y'all have seen those gardening boxes that you can buy, but pretty much it'll be a box of seeds that are good for your environment. And you can look at a little map and see different zones of the US, and you buy your seed box based on what zone you're in. I think she could definitely take that model for the bird feed. Be like, if you live in this zone, buy zone 3 food and you'll get the birds in this kind of general area. And then again, like I said, making the real like hardcore customized boxes a bigger premium. That would be my advice as somebody who knows nothing about nothing. My advice would be listen to Mark. That's my advice for her on this. Along with that, it's just generally really expensive. She's even raised the price a few dollars. The Simply Seed box is now $52, and I fear Kevin has a point. I feel like a lot of people generally who have bird feeders do like the bird feeders. They want to see birds, but they're not willing to like invest a whole bunch of money in that. Now, I will say there is a sect of the population who will invest. People love bird watching, so it just kind of depends. But again, I think that's where she would benefit from having a ranged price point for multiple items that could help grow the business. That way you're not just having the super niche, I love birds, I will do anything to get birds market. I did really like this pitch. I thought the product was interesting. I thought it was a refresher from some of the stuff we see on Shark Tank. It was different, it was interesting, and I hope she does well because I like it. I generally like it, but I do think there's just points that need improvement, which I think makes the pitch interesting. It's a different sort of product, something we haven't really seen. She got advice from the sharks that was very good. Overall, really liked the pitch and wish Susan nothing but the best. Our fourth and final pitch of the night is Remento. Charlie walked into the tank looking for $300,000 for 5% of his family storytelling book business. Here it is. How it works is you select a loved one whose stories you want to preserve forever. This company then has prompts you can select from. You send one to the loved one. They record their story using their voice or a video, and their AI turns it more into an actual story book-like product, which then you can get a physical book of. The pages also have QR codes that lead you to the original recording of the story. The service costs $99. This includes a year-long subscription to their prompts service and also one hardcover book. We don't really get like the cost to make. I think he did give us a profit margin, but it kind of got lost in other information about numbers that we're going to get into. The business was started 3 years ago. However, this particular product has only been in the market for 10 months. And in that 10 months, they've done $620,000. They're projecting to end the year at $1.5 million. And for 2025, they're projecting to do $4.6 million. And they say they do plan to be profitable in 2025. On the $4.6 million, they're planning to profit around $1.5 to $2 million. Then we get into the question of other investors or outside capital raised, and he lets us know that 3.5 years ago, they raised $2.5 million at an $11 million valuation. However, that was for a completely different product that they didn't end up bringing to market. The main difference is that that product was focused on in-person oral histories. That's pretty much all the info we get from him about that product.
What happened to the $2.5 million?
And the answer to that is they spent it. And then they came up with the current product that they have, went back to those investors and raised another $1.5 million, putting the total raised at $4 million. Through this, they've sold 30% of the business, and the money they have left from the $4 million is $561,000. We're going to put a pin in the investors and all that money and come back to it in a minute, because we have some other general questions from the shark that I want to cover. First of which is Mark's, who's concerned about kids connecting with the platform and asks if they've considered making it like a social media site, because that's the platform kids are used to. And I had to bring this up mostly because I just did not understand what Mark was asking. I don't really get why he felt like they needed to make it a social media. I really was confused by this whole question, and honestly, it kind of made Mark sound old to me personally. I was like, I think kids really aren't the problem with who you need to be able to connect with this platform. Kids in general, as long as it's like digital, as this product is, pretty sure they'll figure it out. The more important side is making it easier for older people who aren't as adept with some of this stuff. And it feels like making it a social media platform would make it harder for the majority of older Americans who this product is tended to be pointed towards. I don't know. This was just very odd to me. I would love anybody else's thoughts on this because I don't really know what Mark's thought process was here. Moving on. Then we have Daniel, who gets down to the pressing matters. He wants to know how Charlie presents so well. He even compares him to Barack Obama and the way he presents. And we find out that Charlie was actually a speechwriter for Obama. I just thought that fact was very funny, especially the fact that Daniel hit it on the head so hard, being like, "You sound like Obama," and him having to be like, "Yes, I was a speechwriter for the Obama campaign." That was just so funny to me, so I had to let y'all know. Now back to the other investors and the money, because of course the sharks are very concerned, especially with how much has been spent, and Barbara asks him if he's okay with the amount that they've lost, and his response is to say it's not a loss. It was just research and development for the product they have today. Daniel, though, then points out that at least $2.5 million of it was, at minimum, a very costly lesson because that first platform didn't work out at all. So it's not really like research and development for the current product, as Charlie would like to spin it. And to his credit, he does concede and agree with Daniel that it would be fair to call it a costly lesson. So to that point, Mark wants to know if Charlie is thinking that they're going to have to continue to raise more money, and he says no, they do not think that they're going to have to continually raise, which is good if it's true. Kevin says that he's done really well knowing all his numbers and explaining them. However, he doesn't like the fact that there's already going to be a bunch of investors on top of him. Along with that, he gives his famous line of not getting out of bed for 5% and says it would need to be something closer to 15 to 20%.
What's your reaction to what he said? So that's actually kind of where I was.
Daniel even tells us that he literally wrote in his notebook, ask for 20%, settle at 15.
I just want to say I was looking at my notes and it said, offer nothing, save your money.
And with that great little line, of course, Barbara's out. Mark is ready to get to the bottom of all of this and point blank asks him what room he has to negotiate. And he says that anything above 10% is going to be really difficult for him. That's all Mark needs to hear, and he makes him an offer of $300,000 for 10%. And Charlie is almost ready to make a deal, but first he wants to know if Mark minds splitting it up some among advisory shares and regular equity.
Oh yeah, I don't give a about that. Okay.
And with that, they end up doing the deal for $300,000 for 10%, some of that amount being advisory shares, but who's to say how much of it? So this is a product I'm slightly familiar with, not really them, but their competitor. I looked into using Storyworth for a family member of mine. It ended up not working out, and honestly, I deeply regret that I didn't figure out how to make that work out when I could make it work, but Either way, I have looked into this sort of product quite a bit, and what I'll say is about this one, I do not like the AI aspect of it. If you've seen my videos before, you could have probably guessed I was going to say that, but me personally, I feel like when you're making a sort of product like this, I don't need it to be polished. I don't need it to be, some sort of made up story. Not that they're making things up, but I kind of feel like the point of something like this is to hear it in that family member's voice. Like, I want to hear those filler words they gave. I want to hear the way they described it. I don't want AI making a summary of what they said. I want to hear it in their voice. It's not like this is a book that's going to be published for people. This is supposed to be a personal memory, and I want to remember the person, how they were. Filler words, stuttering, any of that and all of that. That's personally how I feel about it. If you've used this company or Storyworth, I would definitely love to hear any thoughts and feelings about it. This is something that's definitely been top of mind of something I might want to do for other family members, but I would just love to hear what y'all's feelings about it are, especially the AI aspect. And I did see on their website that you can, it seems like, just use the transcription if you want, but with the AI aspect being there, I don't know, it icks me out enough that I think, in my personal opinion, if I get the chance to do this with family members, I would probably go the Storyworth route. Unless there's another company I don't know about, which again, if y'all have any experience in this field, I definitely want to hear about it down below because I'm very, very interested. But with Remento, how it is, I don't know. I don't think I'll be using this one if I was looking for a service like this. Because of the AI aspect, I just gotta be real. And that is a wrap on Shark Tank Season 16, Episode 12. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it down below. If you like Shark Tank recaps, Shark Tank product reviews, reality TV in general, check out the channel and subscribe. It's a good time over here. As always, I want to hear your thoughts, feelings, opinions, comments, all that and more down below. And until then, I'll see y'all in the next one.